Welcome back to Theoretical Nonsense. On today's show, we're going to be discussing the origin of the heart shape, butts, radioactive mice, and if Sheldon is practicing Kolinahr correctly. Stay tuned. Welcome to Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD required.
We're the podcast that recaps all the episodes of The Big Bang Theory. No spoilers.
So hop into your favorite spot,
Make yourself a grasshopper,
and enjoy the ride. Hello there, Ryan.
Hello, Rob.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Amazing, because I'm ready to talk the alien parasite hypothesis.
Yeah!
All right. What'd you think of this episode?
I liked it. I don't think I liked it as much as the previous episode, but it was still good quality. It seemed short to me.
It did go by very fast.
Yeah. And, I only had like 3 IQ points, maybe 4. I'd have to double check. But, I was even surprised I had that many because it seemed like it just went by, very quickly.
Yeah, I think there was just so much going on with everyone's storylines and everything. It just kind of went. But, did you have a favorite storyline?
I enjoyed Raj and Howard. Bernadette, she only had a bit part in this one, but she had some funny lines. And then, I think the actual main storyline, the plot A or storyline A, definitely
Amy Sheldon stuff.
Yeah, they built some characterization with them, some important characterization. So I appreciated that. I thought it was a little goofy at times, so I was kind of like, but at the same time, it was building and progressing their characters, and I appreciated that a lot. And it had some laughs too, so I can't complain too much.
Yeah, the A plot was definitely my favorite parts. The Amy Sheldon stuff, like seeing their relationship outside of the other people, like what they do and how they hang out and everything.
Yeah.
I really like that.
It was and also Penny interacting with Amy. I love seeing, it's as good as Penny interacting with Sheldon, the clash of personalities. And Amy definitely wants to be, she's interested in being feminine. And Penny's like that, spark of light for that. And she doesn't know quite how to interact with that. And yeah, hilarity ensues, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, before we dive in, don't forget to email us at theoreticalnonsensepod@gmail.com. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Theoretical Nonsense Pod, which we actually did get a new email. It was actually a short one from Rick, who's emailed us quite a bit. So thanks for emailing us again, Rick. This we had this a little snippet about socks and sandals and everything like that a little while ago. But Rick wrote, just a quick note, I fiercely defend your right to wear socks with sandals, and I fiercely defend my right to laugh at how stupid it looks. Rick.
I still don't get it. What's wrong with socks and sandals? I'll never do it again. I'm afraid of being made fun of, but
well, it's in fashion now.
It is in fashion.
You know what? All the kids are doing it.
I just don't understand
bussin'.
fashion.
It's the fire now.
It's fire. That's what it is. It's fire.
Yeah, you Sigma now. Been brushing up on my Gen Alpha lingo.
So I was talking to somebody who has kids. He's like, everything's fire these days. I'm like, things are on fire? It's like, nope, they're just fire.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
It's fire. Our podcast?
Fire.
Not quite yet, but we'll get there, though.
We're working. Soon.
Soon we will be the fire.
We will fire it. I don't know.
I can't wait for Hunter to grow up and get the new lingo, and I could just embarrass him. I can't wait.
I'm waiting for you to grow up, kid, so I can take care of this.
Yeah, and I could shoot you in the face with a Nerf gun. That's what I'm really looking forward to. Because if I do it now, it's abuse.
It's abuse. But when you're 16, I can do it while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
And
You
it's
come home
funny.
late. Oh, you're bringing home a date? I'm gonna shoot both of you.
Both of you.
All right. This is season 4, episode 10, The Alien Parasite Hypothesis. Aired December 9th, 2010. Written by Chuck Lorre, Bill Prady, and teleplay by Lee Aronson. Directed by Mark Centrowski. Opening scene, we're at the apartment and the guys are eating and sitting in silence. And Sheldon kind of brings up, like, hey, aren't we supposed to be talking and exchanging opinions and ideas of the day? But apparently they're all quiet because Sheldon threatened death to the next person that spoke with their mouth open, with food in their mouth.
I get with one point, I think this is the only point for the whole episode of not being like Sheldon here. I am totally cool eating the silence. I feel like taking time to respect the meal and enjoy the meal, and not trying to force conversation is really important to me. So I'm against Sheldon's trying to force conversation, saying it's your time to talk about the daily events and go. I'm like, no, it's time to appreciate the food and just kind of calm down and equal out.
I agree with that. My wife and I have like this kind of rule where like the first 5 to 10 minutes of the meal is in silence because we want to enjoy the food while
Mm-hmm.
it's hot. And like we will actually want to experience our food and just kind of take in the moment just because it's our peaceful time. And then we could start talking. Like it does get very challenging like when you're out with people, like even at like restaurants and stuff like that, where like there's this obligation to talk and everything, and it's like, dude,
Yeah.
I'm trying to eat my food.
I just want to let me eat. I remember dating a girl once that did not like go on food dates until like the third or fourth date. Like it's basically like the sex rule but with food, right? Like I don't put out until the third date. Well, it wasn't. I don't eat with people till the third date because in her stance, if I remember correctly, it was that eat, being silent with somebody takes a level of comfort that's kind of hard to establish. And usually you're really nervous, like on the first date and first two dates, and being quiet with them in the middle of that awkwardness is just a little too much. And so she's like, when I eat, I don't necessarily want to talk. And then there's that silence and it's awkward and uncomfortable. And so I want to know that I'm comfortable being silent with somebody to eat before I say, let's go on a food date. I'm like, I respect that. So we didn't go on a food date until like our fourth date or something.
And then she dumped you.
And then she dumped my ass. She said, "Now that I'm silent with you, fuck you, Ryan." Like, oh, okay.
This part, you chew with your mouth open. Done.
And because of that, she changed the rule and she checks on the first date if people chew with their mouth opens.
The moment you sit down, she shoves food in your mouth.
Now eat.
Well, Sheldon offers a new topic of conversation. He poses the question, what is the best number? But there's only one correct answer. And Raj guesses 5,318,008, which is wrong. The best number is 73, and no one cares. And Sheldon explains that 73 is the 21st prime number, its mirror is 37, which is the 12th, and its mirror is 21, which is the product of multiplying, hang on to your hats, 7 and 3. And then in binary, it's a palindrome, so it's the same thing backwards.
1001001. I have to say, I didn't give myself a point, but I agree with his logic. I don't know if it's my favorite number, but that's pretty objective information for liking 73. I thought that was pretty cool to have all those things about it. So
Yeah. I kind of did put some thought into what my favorite number it is, if I even have a favorite number, which I don't think I do. But I'd say pi is probably my favorite number. 3.1.
Cool.
It goes on infinitely. So that's pretty cool.
I like 13 a lot just because it's known as
The unlucky number.
unlucky number. I think it was my number in soccer too at time in high school. But also like with my synesthesia, like I see it as like orange and black. 3 is kind of a orangey brown color, so I'm like, it's a Halloween number too. Ha!
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah. That doesn't make any sense. It's not logical like Sheldon's logic, but
Yeah. But you know what? We could like the best number is subjective.
exactly. Although Raj has a good reason to like 5,318,008.
Because when you flip it over on a calculator, it spells boobies.
Boobies. So
Thus
childish.
explaining why the girls are not having dinner with them.
Oh yeah.
Now we cut to the bar, and all the girls are together: Penny, Bernadette, and Amy. And Bernadette is showing off her heart locket. And we learn that she gets jewelry every time she has dinner with Howard and his mom.
She says it so nicely too. Like
Uh,
every time I do, I get jewelry.
which it honestly took me a while to fully understand. I was like, I don't really get it, but it's because I'm guessing it's because like Mrs. Wallowis is so horrible of a person that that Howard is bribing her with like jewelry, right?
Or saying, thank you for being with me. I'm sorry about my mom.
Mhm.
Like, I love you so much. Please don't leave me.
Oddly took me a while to to click it for as many times as I've seen this episode.
And I think I like it too because she doesn't complete. I don't think she understands it either. She's like, oh, I just ended up with jewelry.
Yeah.
How about that?
And then Amy pulls out some knowledge and she says, did you know that the iconic Valentine's heart shape is not actually based on the shape of a human heart, but rather the shape of the buttocks of a female bending over? So, this leads into the first IQ point.
IQ point one.
Yeah, do you want to take this one?
Um, if you want me to, I can take it.
Yeah, let's see what you got.
And
Because
we can
I'm
compare.
guessing you want to do some butt talk.
I do. Although, for my information, mostly from history.com, there are a couple different websites in there. I don't think this is entirely true. The main thing I got was that the theories on it being related to breasts, buttocks, some people say the pubic mound, or the vulva, even some people say, uh, didn't really start coming up till the 1960s. And according to Wikipedia, they're just speculative. There's really no evidence to support that that's what they're from. I mean, we can visualize it like, oh yeah, it does kind of look like a booty sticking up if somebody's bending over. But one theory is that it's supposed to look like ivy leaves. I couldn't see that necessarily, but apparently ivy leaves are associated with fidelity and eternal life, and it's easy to see that they have crossover into love and devotion into relationships. But again, couldn't find a whole lot of information on how or why that would be. The one that seemed the most likely is that it's connected to a plant called I'm going to butcher this, silphium, which is like a giant fennel seed. Apparently, the seed pods on this plant and the fruit look like hearts, and you look them up, and they do look like hearts. It's like a little pink heart, and then they dry out, and it's like a little yellow heart type thing. But apparently, they were grown in North Africa near a Greek colony of Syrian, near present day Libya. And they were used for flavor and medicine. I believe fennel kind of, well, if you have sausage, a lot of sausage has fennel seed in it now.
It's like very a licorice kind of taste.
Yeah, kind of a black licorice taste. But this plant was used for cough syrup, medicine, and birth control. And so the notion is that it started getting connected as an aphrodisiac because it was connected to birth control. And then it makes sense that if it's connected to sex, it's connected to love, and they start identifying that seed with the heart. And I think the biggest tell for this, or support for this being the origin of the heart, is that city had the symbol of that pod on their money, and their coins basically had little hearts on them because it represented the silphium seed that they were harvesting and selling. Like that was their export. The last one that also makes sense, kind of, I think I like the seed pod theory the most, is that apparently artists tried to paint Galen and Aristotle's description of the human heart, and I guess the description was kind of shitty. It said that there were 3 chambers and a small dent in the middle of the heart, and people kind of went with that and basically drew the human body with what was supposed to be the heart, but it looks like what we know the symbol of the heart to be. And it would make sense that, for the longest time, emotions and pleasure were correlated with the human heart and being from our chest. And so it makes sense that that gets connected with love. People see that image and start associating love and the passion we feel in our chest connected with that little horrible representation of the human heart from the language that Aristotle described it with. And then with that passion and connection, that it's grown into connections with religion, being exported to playing cards, the card suit hearts, and eventually even to Valentine's Day cards. But again, I think I like the Sylphium theory the most, although I think the artistic representation and complete misunderstanding of what the human heart looks like might make sense too. What'd you come up with? Anything different, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I actually came up with the exact same stuff, and I'm on the first theory too, the Sylphium, like that seems to make the most sense. And I was gonna say something else, but oh yeah, I was gonna say like I looked at multiple websites and tried to find multiple sources about like the whole like buttocks thing and everything, and it's like what you said, like it's theorized, but there's like literally no evidence and no origin to like when it actually started. So I think Amy is wrong too.
Yeah, I think it's
Well,
a
not
nice
Amy, but like
theory.
people in general. Like it's theorized everywhere.
Yeah, but I'm just not seeing enough information to support that as the origin. But it's fun to think about. And
Yeah.
every time I see a heart now, I'm going to think of a nice ass. Look at that. Ryan, that's a
Well,
Valentine's Day heart. No, that's ass. Is
is it though? Is it?
it? I want to slap that box of chocolates if you know what I mean. You'd be
I
naughty.
don't.
Don't Ryan, we're in public.
This is why we don't hang out, Ryan. Well, anything else on hearts or butts?
That's all I got for today.
Well, re-enter Zach. Zach is back.
Zach.
Yeah, we love Zach. We
Me
really
too.
like Zach. And he's dropping off menus. And Amy gets a little fluttery. She starts saying, who?
Who?
And then Zach goes to drop off his menus, and Amy questions Penny why she and Zach stopped dating. And then Penny says that, well, Zach didn't challenge her intellectually. So Bernadette suggests, well, why don't you just fool around with them and listen to NPR? It's what I do with Howard since I'm much smarter. I love Bernadette.
Right?
Like, she's such a good girlfriend too.
She's like,
It's like
I
there's
can't
not a lot
threaten
of
his
people.
manhood. Like that's so
Yeah,
nice. Like she doesn't even have like it's kind of condescending, but at the same time she's doing it very lovingly.
yeah. And then Zach ends up bending over, and Amy keeps hooing. And she thinks that she has the flu coupled with a sudden onset Tourette's syndrome, which we've actually done an IQ point on Tourette's in the past.
We did, and I remember the key thing I took away from it is Tourette's is actually diagnosed with multiple tics. I can't remember the exact number. I want to say there's got to be like 5 or more tics, and they have to uh, continue for quite a while before it's considered Tourette's because people can just have tics and it's not Tourette's.
Well, now we have the opening credits, and now we move on to the university cafeteria. The guys are in the cafeteria having lunch, and they are discussing an accident that happened. Somebody was bitten by a rat that was injected by radioactive isotopes. No superpowers got transferred, but it does open up the debate of who would be the superhero and who would be the sidekick between Howard and Raj.
And I
Raj
actually,
seems,
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say Raj seems super stoked to have rat powers.
Right,
Like,
he was
makes
really into it.
and they're pretty compelling arguments too. If you actually do get rat powers.
I actually looked up if there were any superheroes, Ratman superheroes.
Oh, what'd you find?
So one technically he's not a superhero. He's a villain. But in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, there's a character named Rat King, and he was a scientist. And there's different background stories, but he basically mutated himself and got the power to control rodents. And that's really important because Master Splinter is a rodent, and so he was able to control Master Splinter to do his bidding, right? Um, he's the one that, if you remember, I think in the original Ninja Turtles, he has like orange hair and bandages all over him. He almost looks like a leper, and very disfigured. And throughout the comics and stuff, he's changed appearances. But I remember always being kind of freaked out by him. But I also thought he was a good guy for the longest time. But apparently, he's definitely a bad guy. But he does have the power to control rats, and ends up in most of the versions gets killed, falls off a ledge and dies, which I didn't think Ninja Turtles like had people die, but apparently he falls off a ledge and dies in most versions of Ninja Turtles. So
Oh,
and then his ghost comes back and haunts Splinter in quite a few versions too. So I haven't gotten
interesting.
that far. I was just reading about it. Then I looked up, apparently Wikipedia, or not just Wikipedia, but from Wikipedia. Apparently, if you look up Ratman, Sigmund Freud gave the nickname Ratman to one of his patients, who I didn't follow everything, but he had some outlandish fantasies and some nightmares about rats. That he had some delusions in his life, but he had some nightmares about rats that gave him the nickname Ratman. And his like overwhelming fear was this torture he heard about of somebody putting like a bucket with a rat by your ass and then like lighting the bucket on fire, and like the heat scares the rat, and so it would like bite and burrow its way up your ass. I've heard that torture method before. I've never heard anything in theory of it actually happening, but apparently Sigmund Freud had to treat this guy like that's an irrational fear, it's not going to happen to you, and supposedly cured the guy. And the one that I would say is, well, also technically a superhero, from an Italian comic book where he was Ratman. The hero's called Ratman. He's like this little guy dressed in yellow. This comic book was created by Leonardo Ortolani in 1989, and it was supposed to be a parody of Batman. And so technically, the character didn't have superpowers. He was kind of like a dimwit who had his parents die at a young age and grew up kind of like Bruce Wayne and uses his money and gadgets to fight crime and calls himself Ratman, but doesn't necessarily have superpowers from being bit by a rat. Yeah, he uses gadgets and his inheritance money. And apparently, from what I read, he finds his identity from reading a Mickey Mouse comic. And technically, which makes me wonder if the creators of this episode knew of this Ratman, he does have a sidekick. And the sidekick is named Topin, which connects with the Italian word topo, which means mouse. And so basically, Mouse Boy. So Ratman and Mouse Boy. And supposedly, the comic book series ended on issue 122 in 2017. So, but technically, there was a Ratman in Italy. And yeah, that's what I got. Nothing specifically about a guy being bit by a rat, but we do have the Rat King who has psychic powers with rats, and we have Ratman who is like a Batman character in Italy.
nice. I actually looked at some characters that had like rat powers and stuff like that too. In
Yeah.
terms of like rat powers, there actually are quite a few of them just in the world. So I wasn't gonna name them all, but like in terms of like Marvel and DC, DC has a character named Ratcatcher, which is actually a person that was able to create a device to control rats. Ratcatcher too, or I think her name was Ratcatcher too. It's the daughter of Ratcatcher. Was in the newest Suicide Squad
Oh.
movie. I don't know if you watched that, but that was fucking great.
I
The
don't think
new
I saw the second one.
yeah, so much better. The first one, garbage, hot pile of garbage. Erase it.
Just forget it exists.
Yeah. And then in Marvel, there's a villain called Vermin, which is actually like a mutated rat person.
Interesting that most of these are villains, bad guys,
Yeah.
right? That we think
Yeah.
of rats as bad. So we make them the bad or jokes. Which is really
Yeah.
sad because I'm technically Year of the Rat. I don't know what that says about me in
It
Chinese
means you're a villain
astrology.
in life. It
I'm
means
the villain.
you just haven't you haven't gone full force yet.
Not yet. It's coming though.
It's
Give me
coming.
some cheese.
I was eating cheese earlier.
Oh no, it's happening.
All it takes is one bad day for a supervillain to be created. Anything else on Ratman?
I don't think so. I was also going to say that there's a, it's not really a superhero; it's a horror movie. But there's a collection of horror movies called VHS, and they're like compilation films, like found footage, and like in each film, there's 3 different mini films that tell like a horror story, and it's like handheld cameras. And one of them, I think it was VHS 90 something. There's like a news anchor doing like a video program. Like the story is she's covering some footage about people disappearing around a sewer, and through it, I thought that people kept saying Ratman's down there, and they met somebody who's like, worship, all hail Ratman. And like throughout the whole video, I'm like, who the fuck's Ratman? And it turns out there's a monster in the sewers called Radanon. And they say it so fast, I was thinking Ratman. And then like at the end, he basically takes over the world, and everybody's like, hail Ratman. And so it's not exactly that, but if you watch it, let me know, because I swear it sounds like they're saying hail Ratman.
There's a lot of VHSs, aren't there? I remember watching the first one, and it was pretty good. I mean, a bunch of short stories, found footage. It's pretty scary.
I can't say they're the best horror movies, but I've never been significantly let down. It's never like, that was shit. It's like, oh, I'm happy I watched that. It was a fun Halloween or horror movie.
Yeah. Well, they are arguing, and Leonard realizes that 12 years after high school, he's still at the nerd table. And before we move on to the next scene, Amy's lab, I actually did a little bit of research on... I was wondering why, because I don't really know science very well, so I was wondering, why would you inject mice with radioactive isotopes?
Ooh, that's a good question.
And what would happen if you actually got bit by a rat? Like, what really happens? So, I found, the first part of this, why are mice injected with radioactive isotopes? And I found this on cdc.gov, which apparently now may not be the most reliable source.
Right? Oh, Jesus Christ.
But that's what I went with, because I doubt they're going to change this information.
Right, that part might still be safe. Radioactive rats may not be touched for a while.
Yeah, not for a while. But everything else, pretty questionable. May not use this as a source anymore after this. So the act of injecting mice with radioactive isotopes is a practice to test nuclear medicine. Nuclear medicine uses radioactive material inside the body for 2 reasons: diagnosis and treatment. For diagnosis, it's to see how organs or tissue are functioning, and for treatment, it's to target and destroy damaged or diseased organs or tissue. So for diagnosis, a patient will have what's called a tracer. I know you love these quotes. Either injected, swallowed, or inhaled, and the provider will trace the material as it goes through your body. They will measure how much of the radioactive tracer is absorbed or how it reacts. This will give the provider information about how well organs or tissues are working. Common uses of nuclear medicine for diagnosis include scans of the heart, lungs, kidneys, gallbladder, and thyroid. For treatment, the tracer targets a harmful organ or tissue and damages or stops the growth of cells. 2 common uses of nuclear medicine for treatment include radioactive iodine therapy and brachytherapy. Brachytherapy is a form of treatment where a sealed radiation source is placed inside or next to the area requiring treatment. So that's what this school is studying. They must be doing like some sort of cancer research or something like that.
I just
So what?
imagine some
Oh,
guy named Ratman now dressing up as a rat and saying, "Change your CDC information." This is all agenda. I fight for the rats.
yeah. Well, what
Interesting.
happened? Well, what can happen if you get bitten by a rat? So, if you ever get bitten by a rat, there is something called rat bite fever.
Is that like
So,
disco?
I wish. I wish you would just start dancing. That's it. They bite you, and it's an uncontrollable urge to dance.
Get the doctor. He's dancing again.
He's got the RBF.
Fever.
Well, RBF is a bacteria that is carried by rats, mice, gerbils, guinea pigs, and squirrels. Critters that carry this bacteria show no signs of illness, so you never know what's carrying it. It can be transferred to you by bite or scratch. Symptoms can be like the flu: fever, vomiting, headache, and muscle pain. Half the people will show joint pain or swelling. 3 out of 4 will develop a rash. Symptoms usually occur 3 to 10 days after contact, but can show up after 21 days. Treatment is antibiotics, but make sure that you tell your provider that you made rodent contact.
So, like, even with a lab rat where they're keeping it like safe and quarantined from outside illnesses, it could still have that bacteria
It could
on
be
it.
carrying it, yeah.
Yeah.
You'll never know until you get tested.
Interesting. I just watched
Oh,
Nosferatu, the
the new
remake.
one. How was it?
I liked it a lot. I thought it was beautiful. I want to watch it again just because, like, some of the shots were so beautiful. I was just paying attention to them as opposed to like what was going on in the story. But it really amps up the connection between vampires and plagues. And so there's just rats like falling from the sky and falling out of walls, and people are walking around the city and rats are attacking them. It's I loved it. It was great.
Oh
But yeah,
gosh, that's so
they had
scary.
the RBF for sure.
Vampires aren't real. They're just hallucinating the entire time.
I got the fever and
Fever dreams.
now I gotta dance.
Just dance. Well, then I actually looked up. I I know it's not real, but I just decided to check out some websites that would confirm this. But can you ever become radioactive and get superpowers? I didn't look that hard, but ionactive.co.uk, which is a radiation protective advisor website, says that radiation cannot be passed from person to person. So I'm guessing that they're also including animals to people too, since it just can't be transferred. However, if it's a radioactive material, something that emits radiation, that can be passed from person to person. So if the rat was fully radioactive, then maybe Ratman could be a thing. But doubtful. You'll probably just get cancer and die.
That's a There was a Family Guy, right? In like one of the first seasons where the Griffins get covered in radioactive waste and they get like special powers. Remember Meg is able to grow her nails really quickly and scratch people. And Mayor West is like, I need to fight them. I'll get my own superpowers, and jumps into a vat of radioactive waste. And they're like, you have leukemia. Why did you do that? That was stupid. Go.
Well, now we're on to Amy's lab. Sheldon is there, and he is micromanaging her work, how well and how thick she's slicing a brain. And she's obviously very comfortable around the brain because there's that little whole thing of like eating in front of like something gross and everything.
Yeah, I didn't mind them eating around there. Well, first of all, it'd probably be gross for me because the smells would be horrible and the chemicals that would make it really hard to eat. But she didn't take her gloves off to eat. Like, she's cutting the brain and, like, eats. Ugh.
I get that you're comfortable, but come on.
Come on.
Well, now she starts checking her vitals, since she's convinced that she's still sick. She explains the situation to Sheldon, and then they just have that back and forth between who and who.
It's that, who's on first skit, right?
Yeah.
Who's on first? That's who I said. Who? Yeah. But who? I said who? Zach. But he said who? Yeah. It's kind of funny, but a little stale.
Yeah. And Sheldon says, okay, I think I have enough to go on. Possible explanations for your symptoms are, in descending order of likelihood, hyperthyroidism, premature menopause, hosting an alien parasite, name of the episode, and I only include, for the sake of covering absolute all bases, sexual arousal. And I love that Amy is just stuck on that alien parasite. She's like, why would I have gotten an alien parasite? We shift over to the cafeteria, and Howard confronts Raj with a bravery test. He first approaches them, trying to like probe him. What's your greatest fear? And then Raj has more practical things to say. But it's like, spiders. It's spiders. You're afraid of spiders. The real hero will be able to hold their hand in this jar. It's like, come on, that would never happen.
Maybe you have to save the world by putting your hand in a jar.
And then Raj just claps back. He's like, well, what if the Earth was in danger and the only way to save it was to take a shower in the locker room and let other guys see you naked? Which apparently is Howard's greatest fear.
That would never happen.
But then Raj finds his bravery because the spider left the jar and is crawling up Howard's arm. Oh man, I would freak the fuck out.
I think Howard, or the guy who plays Howard, did a really good job with that, because that was a real spider from what it looked like.
Yeah.
And he was dancing around with it, so that's that takes something. He did good.
I don't think I could ever do that. I don't know if you could pay me enough.
I wouldn't be okay with it. It reminds me of in the movie Candyman, when it was made, the guy who played Candyman, there's like a scene where he has like bees coming out of his mouth, and I've read that he was paid $1,000 per sting, and came out of that like 5-second scene $27,000 richer.
Oh, wait, so there was practical coming out of his mouth and everything like that too?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God.
I'm like, I don't know if that's worth it, but I mean, for 5 seconds, $27,000. I don't know.
That's kind of lasting pain, though. Like a bee sting kind of hurts for a little, especially if it's in your mouth, too.
Yeah, right? Like you're pulling it out of your...
Poor Candyman.
Yeah, poor Candyman. He was the real victim.
We shift back over and we're in Amy's lab, and tests are coming back and they are deduced to sexual arousal. And then Sheldon relates the situation to Spock in Star Trek, the motion picture, which he tells her not to watch. And I checked out the Rotten Tomato score, and apparently it is pretty bad.
Oh,
52%.
No. So that would be the first one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was in the 70s.
And people like the second one, from my understanding, right?
They liked a lot of the other ones. They liked the next one, and they hated Nemesis, and then they progressively liked them.
And I don't get what the hate is with Nemesis. I didn't think it was terrible. It wasn't the best, but it wasn't...
We talked about that last time.
And I stand on that cliff. I don't know. So I'm curious, and I think it's interesting, too, that they would make that the first one would be the worst one, and then they get better. Usually the sequels get worse over time, so...
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, if anybody actually out there likes Star Trek, the motion picture, hit us up and tell us why.
Let us know.
Because
First
Ryan
one bad,
and I have
second one
never
good.
seen it.
Yeah. Someday.
Well, he tells her of the Vulcan practice of Kolinahr, which is basically purging out all of the emotions. It is like the final step of like becoming truly a intellectual being, essentially, in Star Trek.
So I did some research on this. I don't know if it's a full IQ point. I was saying it was, but I don't know if I agree with what he's saying exactly. Because he says that he's practicing Kolinahr to remove his emotions, but it's my understanding, and I haven't seen it, so I can't say for sure, but from my understanding with some fandom.com websites on Star Trek, that this is a Vulcan ritual and rite of passage that lasts 2 to 6 years. They basically go to a sanctuary and meditate and process things and eliminate emotions from them for the rest of their lives. And that's how they mature into older people. The sanctuaries, I think it said Pijim was one of them, the main one. It's supposed to be a place of like peaceful meditation, but it's not an ongoing thing. Sheldon makes it seem like every time he gets upset or there's emotions, he stops and practices Kolinahr to get rid of the emotions. But it's my understanding that Vulcans do this once and their emotions are purged, which would be something different. And I was thinking, yeah, what Sheldon's doing seems more like straight up meditation, which I guess is a part of the Kolinahr, from my understanding. But his sounds more like a form of Buddhism, and the practice of detachment to avoid suffering, which, again, not an expert at Buddhism, studied a little bit, but what did I get? Yeah, it's about cultivating mindful awareness through meditation, becoming informed and aware of observations and awareness so you're not controlled by emotions. Basically, realizing, hey, I feel angry now. Here's why I feel angry, and I'm not going to be controlled by that anger, but I'm going to be aware it's there and act informative, with an informed mind, I guess. And I think that's different than the Vulcans, and I guess this is part of the Vulcans in Star Trek, that Buddhism and the practice of detachment isn't necessarily about learning to be cruel, cold, or mean. Like we think that, oh, if you have no emotions, you're going to be mean to everybody and you won't care about anybody. But that's not necessarily the case. It's just the notion of not choosing your actions based on emotion, where I think part of the conflict with Vulcans, and please correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, is that because they lack emotions, they often lack the ability to be compassionate. And that's part of Spock's role, is that he's somewhere between human and Vulcan, and so he's trying to be compassionate but not be controlled by emotions. And again, I think that's more of the Buddhist teaching as opposed to Kolinahr, where it's like you cut those emotions off and you don't care at all. And once you've done it, you've matured into an adult. You don't do it again. But anyways, that was my finding, that it seemed kind of like a not quite a full understanding of the practice. But again, I haven't seen the movie, so I'm not positive. And maybe we should just sit down and watch it. But yeah, let me know if anybody has an idea on that. It just seems like it was a little bit disconnected from what it was in the movie, from what I've read.
You and I really do need to carve out some time for a side quest. We
Right?
really do. Like, we keep talking about it every time. We keep talking about, like, we just haven't found the time. And
It seems like the more we watch, the more we're like, God, man, we just gotta watch it.
I know. This is so hard to find time.
It's
It's like,
true.
I'm just starting Deadwood. I gotta watch that. The new Lord of the Rings animated movie came out, so I gotta prioritize that.
I got through an episode of The Office the other day. I was proud to do that.
You're still on like what, season 4, season 5,
I think it's 5 now.
and you've been on that for a while.
I just got to the part where Jim gets promoted as a co-manager, right?
Okay, yeah, where he was planning on potentially leaving, and David Wallace proposed the idea of making them both a manager.
And they have to cut bonuses, so they hide in the office for the whole episode drinking gin.
What does a bean mean?
What does a bee mean? What's a bee mean?
But yeah, we'll have a side conversation offline, and we'll talk about this.
And
We
the
should
rest of
do
you will
something.
find out what we say.
Yeah. Anything else on Kolinahr?
That's it. I'm curious if anybody has more information because it just I feel like that's probably a deep part of Star Trek lore, and I didn't understand it fully. But yeah,
Well, every time I hear Kolinahr, I think of Stormlight Archives. Not sure
Hmm?
if you read that series, but shout out to the Stormlight Archives, The Way of Kings. Kolinahr is the name of the capital city of Alethkar. So,
That
if
came up in my
anybody knows
search. I
what that
haven't
is,
read them,
yeah.
but I typed in Google and that popped up. I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I love that series. It's one of those things like I audiobooked it, so like it's a really fun audiobook. It's really good because like it's written like the Game of Thrones.
Hmm.
So it's like it's a character perspective. So
Hmm.
every chapter is a different character in their perspective, and the narration is done so well. With like they have like different narrators. They have a male and a female to do like the different like male, and if you're a male, it's the male. Then if it's a female, it's the female, and stuff like that.
To
So
help split
it's
up
really
the dialogue a
yeah.
little bit.
So it's really well done too. It is such a great story too. It's like Game of Thrones if it leaned into fantasy even more.
Even more.
Yeah. Yeah. So read that.
I'll put it
I
on my
need
list.
I need to pick it up again. Like I did like the first three books and then I kind of just like it just life happened.
That's what I just did like a humble bundle of the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett, I think. He's got like 30 of those. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it through all 30, but I'd like to read a couple just because I've heard so much about that series. But god damn, that's a lot of books for one series. So
I know. I need Hunter to just get a little bit older to be more self-sustaining and then I could actually read a book. That's not Dr. Seuss.
it's not Dr. Seuss.
Amy calls out Sheldon for telling her to associate life with cheap science fiction, and that just really strikes a nerve with Sheldon. And that's like you said, that's when he kind of goes through his meditation state and everything.
Mm.
And then she calls him out, like, "Hey, are you sure that this feeling isn't because you're jealous?" And then he thinks about it, and then he rejects it. He gets mad and leaves, decides to have his lunch somewhere else, but he accidentally takes her brain instead of his sashimi.
Yeah,
Yeah, so something's going on with Shelly.
little Shelly. Smelly Shelly.
Yeah. Well, Sheldon runs into Penny and explains his situation with Amy, and that he may have to let her go, since he thought that she was more evolved. But she's no better than Penny, a slave to her baser urges. And then she's just going to skip over that insult, and Sheldon doesn't even realize that he's insulting her.
That's why she's gonna skip over it.
Yeah.
It doesn't even understand.
Well, Penny hints that Sheldon could do something about it. Wink, wink.
I love
And
that
then-
part too. That
Yeah.
it's like, are you sure there's nothing you can do? I'm pretty sure.
Well, he says, well, we can't spay a human,
That's illegal.
but apparently you can.
I was wondering about that. I didn't do an IQ point. Did you do some research?
Well, I won't even call it an IQ point because it's so short. It's a procedure called an oophorectomy. That is a procedure that does remove the ovaries from a human female.
I was gonna say
Which
there's
it usually only occurs when something is like infected or like cancerous or something like that. So it is a real thing. So technically you can spay a human.
no, we can neuter guys. We have vasectomies, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know if a woman went in and said like, I just don't want my ovaries anymore. Please remove them. If she could have that done, I don't think it's illegal.
Yeah. I don't think anyone would actually do that though.
I don't know. It's
Unless you're out there and you're listening, you
Let
should
us
hit
know.
us up. You should let us know.
it was a boring Tuesday, so I had my ovaries taken out. Like, oh, okay.
Okay. That's an odd conversation starter, but let's ride this out.
Let's see where this goes. And the doctors were fine with it.
My insurance didn't cover it.
Didn't
Oh.
cover it. Of course not.
Well, then it clicks into Sheldon. Or so we think it does. Because then we cut to the apartment and Sheldon is making some phone calls. He is hunting down Zach, the one that used to have coitus with his neighbor Penny. And then after a couple calls, he thinks he finally found Zach.
I do like that line. He's like, I think you're the right person.
I'm pretty sure I'm talking to the right person. Yes, you can call me Shelly. Yeah, I do have a problem with Smelly Shelly.
Smelly Shelly.
Well, now we cut to the gym, or a gymnasium, and Howard and Raj are gonna wrestle. Howard's in the red and Raj is in the blue. And they kind of beat around the bush a lot, just because it's obvious that they don't want to fight, so they're just drawing it out as much as they can. How do we count this down? Can't dang. We can't, like, 3, 2, 1 is for babies. Well, now we jump over to the bar, and Sheldon and Amy are at a bar looking for Zach. So I'm guessing Sheldon asked where Zach was going to be that night, I'm guessing.
Well, he was saying, basically saying, would you like to have sex with Amy? He was, like, basically hooking them up, and I'm guessing Zach must have said, sure, I'll do it, and shown up, right? I don't know how the conversation went. That's what
I know. I kind of wish they finished that conversation.
Yeah, at least a little bit more, because how would that go over?
Well, Sheldon is very encouraging her to just pound it out. They find Zach and she approaches him. She
and I actually did a IQ point on he says follow your endocrine system. And I didn't know what that was. And I still kind of, he's not necessarily wrong, but it's still kind of a weird thing to say. But according to cancer.gov and hopkinsmedicine.org, the endocrine system is a system of glands and organs that make hormones throughout your body. And these hormones help control growth, development, metabolism, and reproduction. Usually, he's basically saying, like, the system is responsible for her being horny. And it seems like only basically the gonads, her ovaries are part of the system, but there's like all these other ones. There's the hypothalamus, which is located at the base of the brain near the optic nerves, and this gland creates hormones that stimulate or suppress pituitary gland hormones, and it also controls water balance, sleep, temperature, appetite, and blood pressure. So nothing about sexuality with that one, really. The pineal gland, which is in the middle of the brain, and I remember studying this, and like it technically looks like a little pine cone, like it's like kind of spherical. That one has to do with sleeping regulation. It produces melatonin. So again, nothing to do with being turned on or horny or sex. The pituitary gland, which is the size of a pea, helps control other glands, and that one is kind of responsible for kicking in and starting puberty. The thyroid gland is in the neck, and this one does hormones that connect with metabolism. The parathyroid gland, which is also next to it, regulates calcium balance. The thymus is in the upper chest, and that one produces white blood cells, which are like the fighters of infections. The adrenal glands, which are on top of each kidney, and like the name says, adrenal, they create, well, first of all, they create corticosteroid hormones, which are steroids to fight inflammation and help with metabolism. And I always mispronounce this, epinephrine, adrenaline. So those are the glands that basically, when we get scared and we get really excited, right? It says they maintain blood pressure and metabolism, but we all know what being filled with adrenaline actually feels like. There's the pancreas. Again, pancreas has nothing to do with being horny or wanting to have sex. It's in your abdomen, plays a role in digestion by creating insulin, glucagon, and helps regulate blood sugar. But then there are the testes and the ovaries. And I read also technically the placenta during pregnancy can excrete hormones that are sex hormones. So technically when he says this endocrine system, he's really just talking about the ovaries at this point because she's not pregnant, she doesn't have testes, so it's like this whole system that I'm not sure all of it really matters for this, just like one bit. But I was curious what that was, and technically it's just all the glands that secrete, create hormones in your body. So that's what I got.
Nice. Well, she approaches Zach and she tells him that she is 130 pounds of raging estrogen, longing to grab a hold of his gluteus maximus and make Shakespeare's metaphorical beast with two backs.
Two backs.
And Zach is just like, what? What is happening right now? Who are you? What?
And that's what confused me. Like, he was there, so maybe the conversation with Sheldon didn't set him up. He was so confused. Like, you think he would have been like, "Oh, so you're Amy? We're gonna do it." But like, he was confused as anybody.
Amy. Yeah. Like, what is happening right now? Well, upon his ape-like expression, she will adopt the Vulcan practice of Kolinahr, and she leaves, not before shaking his hand and possibly getting off. I don't know.
It was a long, drawn-out "who" for sure.
Yeah,
There was something going.
And she walked a little funny by the Sheldon.
She's a little, bow-legged, I would say.
And they leave, and Sheldon gives Zach the Vulcan hand sign. And Zach is just like, was that to me? Well, now we jump back over to the gym, and Howard and Raj are just trying to psych each other out. And apparently they've been circling each other for 30 minutes without touching each other.
Their shit talking was funny for me. I enjoyed hearing them just quip back and forth, insulting each other. It's so silly.
Poor Leonard just has to endure all this.
What else would he do with his Friday night, right?
That's true. Well, now we jump back over to what Amy and Sheldon are doing, and Sheldon is proud of Amy for not going through with it. And then she puts their relationship to the test by holding his hand. And she gets nothing out of it.
And that was sad. Like, I feel like, their relationship's growing, and it's clear that she had nothing but a chemical connection with Zach, but I don't know. I thought they were going to walk away holding hands, but to drop it and say nothing, like, that was kind of a kick in the balls. Like, Sheldon didn't know it, but, like, I kind of felt it. I'm like, ouch, poor Shelley.
Well, I feel like their relationship, even though it's growing and bonding, like, they did first approach each other almost like a business.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like she just wanted to date him just to kind of get her mom off her back.
That's true.
So I think they're just developing a friendship, and like the whole romance of it was never really on the table.
So maybe it won't go further.
I guess you'll have to keep watching and find out.
I still felt like, man, I felt the girl held my hand dropped and said nothing. Like, ouch.
Well, now we're back at the gym for the final scene, and Howard and Raj are still circling each other, just throwing out superhero-style quips. Howard outlogics him by saying the Rat Man would be captured by a rat catcher. And then Raj says that he is a bloviating buffoon. And then Howard calls him a narcissistic nincompoop. Raj goes back, calling him a crimson coward. And then Leonard is just off in the corner, just sleeping.
He's sleeping on the mats.
I feel like I would have just left.
Right?
So I'm going to go get a snack and then just never come back.
He had nothing better to do. As much as he hated it, there's
That's
nothing.
true. And that's the end of the episode. And before we call it quits, we have the vanity card. It is it is Chuck Lorre Productions 319. And it is a poem written very, very italicized. So
It's weird because I got one and it's not formatted like it was after the show because it's a poem, so like it has line breaks and it's centered and it's italicized, and
yeah,
the one I exported into my Word doc is in paragraph form and just like regular text. So yeah, you have to find the real version if you want to see this one because it has special formatting.
Yeah. All right, so let's read this
All right.
poem. It's called As I Get Older. As I get older, I see more clearly, but not with my eyes. I hear more sharply, but not with my ears. I smell more ripely, but not with my nose. As I get older, I see more clearly, but not with my eyes. I hear more sharply, but not with my ears. I touch more intimately, but not with my finger. As I get older, I see more clearly, but not with my eyes. I hear more sharply, but not with my ears. I love more deeply, but not with my penis. As I get older, I see more clearly, but not with my eyes. I hear more sharply, but not with my ears. I think more better, but not with my brain, my head, noggin. As I get older, I see more clearly. The end.
Just thinking I touch more intimately, but not with my finger. If he was going to say I touch more intimately with my penis, like, oh, Chuck, wow.
Well, he doesn't love more deeply with his penis. So.
He just touches with it.
Well, that's not going to make it to a Hallmark card.
No, I don't think so. That's not as feel good as.
No. I feel dirtier just even reading that.
And I don't think
All
the
right.
formatting made it better.
It did not.
It did not.
It did not make it better.
Oh.
All right. So I counted 5 IQ points.
And I've only gone up 1 point. It was on the not Sheldon side, so I'm at 113 to 112. I feel like the last couple episodes have been really in favor of Sheldon, so this was just not a point episode, I would say.
Wait, who's leading right now?
Not Sheldon.
Okay, so you're not Sheldon.
Yeah,
It's
by
neck and
1
neck,
point.
though.
It's neck and neck.
Well, this was kind of a short one.
It was really short.
Yeah, I guess we didn't go on any tangents either.
Yeah.
I think we got that all up in our system before we started recording.
That's fair. We did have 5 IQ points, and I was surprised that we had that many. So you said 5, right?
Yeah, 5.
That's good.
Yep, 5. Yeah, this episode went by so fast.
It was
It's
really
like a lot
fast.
happened, but like they did it like so briefly and everything.
I feel like there was a lot of conversation. It was just I don't know, something about this. How long was the episode? 22 minutes?
Or was it even shorter or something?
Was it short?
For some reason?
It seemed really, really brief. It wasn't a bad
Yeah.
episode. It was just very quick.
Yeah. Well, anything else to add?
I didn't look too much in the future, but I did a little bit. I got excited since this aired December 9th, 2010. I was hoping the next episode might be a Christmas episode. It doesn't look like it. It looked like a costume party or something. I didn't watch it. I just looked on IMDb really quickly. So no Christmas episode this year.
Yeah, and it's really not a spoiler, but like this is the next episode is I think it's the last one of 2010. So then it seems like they went on holiday break.
Holiday break without any holiday specials.
So sad.
What is this world coming to?
It's gone
Maybe
to hell.
next year.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again for listening. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Theoretical Nonsense Pod. Email us at theoreticalnonsenspod@gmail.com, and we will see you next time when we discuss Season 4, Episode 11, The Justice League Recombination.
See you then.
See ya. This was Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD required. Our intro and outro music is by Alex Grohl. Thanks for listening.
Who?